Jim Jones has often found himself at the center of drama, but this time it might be more than he can handle. What began as a typical day at the airport quickly spiraled into chaos, putting everything he's worked for at risk. Witnesses described it like something straight out of a reality TV show: bags flying, voices shouting, and Jim losing his temper. The response from the industry has been swift. Promoters are stepping back, sponsors are silent, and fans are divided. Social media is buzzing with opinions, some defending him, while others think this could mark the end of his career. But what really happened? Did Jim start it, or was this all a setup? And more importantly, has this incident destroyed everything he's worked so hard to build? Jim entered the airport, as he always does, confident, dressed in designer clothes with chains around his neck and sunglasses perched low on his face. Cameras flashed and fans whispered, but this was nothing new for him. It felt like just another normal day. But then, something shifted. The air felt thick with tension, and Jim sensed that something was about to go wrong. He tried to ignore it, chalking it up to fatigue. Then a voice broke through the noise, sharp and challenging. "You really think you can walk around like that?" Jim slowed his pace, glanced over, and saw a man glaring at him. The guy looked angry and was getting closer. Jim had faced people like this before: haters, attention seekers. Usually it was all talk, but this felt different. The man's fists were clenched. People started to notice, pulling out their phones. Jim shifted his duffel bag and calmly said, "I don't even know you." That's when things escalated. The guy lunged at him, pushing him hard enough to make Jim stumble. His sunglasses flew off. The crowd gasped. A woman stepped back in shock, and a child clung to her mother. Jim regained his footing, stood tall, and locked eyes with the man. "You really want to do this?" Jim asked, his voice firm. The man grinned, cracking his knuckles. Jim dropped his bag. It was on. The first punch missed, but Jim was quick to dodge. This wasn't his first fight. However, this wasn't just a brawl, it was a spectacle. Everyone was recording, and every move would soon be online. Jim knew he had two choices: walk away and appear weak, or fight back and risk everything. His pride made the decision for him. Jim landed a solid punch to the guy's shoulder. The man didn't back off. Instead, he grabbed Jim's collar and yanked him forward. Jim fought back. Security rushed toward them. The situation quickly became chaotic. There were no flashy moves, just a raw, messy fight. The man threw a punch, Jim blocked it, then swung again. But the guy ducked. They struggled, grabbing each other's shirts, fighting for control. Then, the man slammed Jim into a metal railing, the sound echoing through the terminal. People screamed, a cart tipped over, a baby cried. Jim was furious. He realized the guy wasn't just fighting him, he was trying to humiliate him. Jim broke free and landed a punch to the guy's face, drawing blood. The man wiped his lip and grinned, wanting more. But before anything else could happen, security tackled them both. Jim hit the ground, face first, with a knee pressed into his back. Handcuffs clicked. The other guy wasn't resisting, just smirking. Jim suddenly realized this wasn't a random confrontation. It was a setup. Cameras were already trained on him before the fight even began. Someone had orchestrated this to ruin him. As he was being dragged away, he overheard people talking. Jim really lost it. "He's done." The words stung more than the blows. He looked at the man being escorted beside him. Their eyes met, and the man winked. That's when it all clicked. Jim had walked right into a trap. At the airport police station, Jim sat cuffed in a holding room. Officers were discussing charges: assault, disturbing the peace, public disorder. Jim could already imagine the headlines. Rapper Jim Jones in violent brawl. Jim Jones snaps at airport. Career meltdown caught on camera. His lawyer, Vanessa Carter, walked in. She was sharp, always in control. "What were you thinking?" she asked. Jim leaned back and said, "You think I started this?" Vanessa sighed. "It doesn't matter. It's everywhere. Twitter, Instagram, TMZ, and no one's on your side." Jim shook his head. "It was a setup. That guy was waiting for me. Cameras were already rolling." Vanessa looked at him, realizing he might be right. But the industry didn't care about the truth. They care about the story, she said. And the story is that you snapped. Jim felt sick. He had worked so hard for his brand, his reputation, his name, and now it was all falling apart because of one incident. Just then, an officer came in. "You're free to go," he said, handing over a piece of paper. "No charges, but if I were you, I'd lay low." Jim opened the paper. It was a tweet from an insider. Jim Jones just ruined his career. Sponsors cutting ties, label reviewing his contract. Jim clenched his fists. Someone wanted him gone. But who? And why now? He looked at Vanessa and said, "Find out who did this. I'm not going down like this." She nodded and made a call. As Jim was driven away from the airport in a black SUV, his phone buzzed. He ignored it, staring out the window deep in thought. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. Jim rolled his eyes. Acelia had to weigh in. Then, one message caught his eye from an unknown number. "You should have stayed quiet. Now you learn the hard way." Jim froze. "What the hell?" He quickly typed, "Jim, who is this?" No response. His heart raced. This wasn't some random troll. This was someone who knew him, someone who wanted him out of the game. Who had the most to gain from this? Maybe the labels he had criticized? A rival artist? Or maybe someone from his past? Jim rubbed his temples, trying to figure it out. His phone buzzed again. This time, it was Vanessa. "Jim, we have a problem." Jim met Vanessa at a private office downtown. She didn't look happy. She slid a tablet across the table. "Watch this." Jim pressed play. It was new footage of the fight, but from a different angle. As Jim stood up, ready to leave, the other guy smirked and whispered something. Jim leaned in closer. In the background, two men were visible, music executives. Jim recognized them immediately. These were the same execs who had been pushing him to sign a new deal for months. He looked up at Vanessa. "They did this." She nodded. "They want you gone, and they're not hiding it." Jim clenched his fists. This was war. The next morning, the headlines were even worse than expected. Jim Jones's career in jeopardy after airport fight, and record label distances itself from Jim Jones amid controversy. Jim threw his phone across the room. It was happening too fast. Too fast. Vanessa burst in with a laptop. "We need to get ahead of this." Jim exhaled sharply. "How?" She hesitated. "You're not going to like it." Jim waited. She took a deep breath. "You need to apologize." Jim stared at her, stunned. "Hell no," Vanessa sighed. "Jim, listen to me. This isn't about right or wrong. It's about perception. If you don't speak out, the industry will control the narrative. And once they do, you won't come back." Jim rubbed his face. "So what? I just go on Instagram and beg for forgiveness?" Vanessa shook her head. "No, we do this smart. We craft a statement. We make it clear you were provoked, that you regret how it went down, but that it won't define you." Jim hated the idea, but she was right. If he didn't act, he could lose everything. He took a deep breath and looked at the camera in front of him. This wasn't how he wanted things to go. He never imagined he'd have to defend himself like this, but here he was, about to record a statement that could make or break his future. Vanessa stood behind the camera, arms crossed. "Just keep it real, Jim. Say what you need to say, but don't give them more ammo." Jim nodded, running a hand over his face. He pressed record. "Yo, what's up, y'all? It's Jim. I know you've seen the headlines, the videos, the rumors. Everyone's got something to say about what happened at the airport. Let me set the record straight." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "Was I involved in the fight? Yeah. I'm not going to sit here and act like it wasn't me. But what they're not telling you is the whole story. Y'all didn't see what happened before that clip started rolling. Y'all didn't hear what was said to me. And the people pushing this narrative, they know they're setting me up to fail." Jim leaned in. "I'm not perfect. I made mistakes. But don't let these labels and industry folks fool you. This wasn't just some random incident. This was planned." He paused, then continued. "These labels, these execs, they've been trying to push me out for a while. I've been speaking out about how they play dirty, how they trap artists in bad deals, how they profit off our struggles. And now, the second they get a chance, they're painting me as the villain. It's not about the fight, it's about control. Vanessa gave him a slight nod. Jim kept going. They want me to be just another artist they can silence. But I'm not going anywhere. They tried to ruin my career, but I built this on loyalty, on real supporters. If you've been rocking with me from day one, you already know what I stand. 4. I'm not done. Not by a long shot. He paused again, his chest tight. Thanks for listening. Stay tuned. Jim cut the recording. He stared at the screen, knowing that this might not be enough. But it was a start.